Good morning, Board of Commissioners and the citizens of Douglas County. Welcome to our Tuesday, November 30th, 2021 legislative meeting. It is now 10:07 a.m. I apologize for that. Good morning again. This morning, our Board of Commissioners, we have the honor and the privilege and pleasure of having Rick Martin, our own Director of Communications, to provide us with the invocation. And after the invocation, certainly we will remain standing for the flag. But before we start, I want to make sure I call roll call. I see all our commissioners that are here today. Commissioner Henry Mitchell III, District 1.
Present.
District 2 and Vice Chairman Kelly Robinson.
Present.
District 3 Commissioner Carthen is not here with us today. And District 4 Commissioner Ann Jones-Guider.
Present.
Chairman Ramona Jackson-Jones present. Board of Commissioners, we do have a quorum. So with that being said, we will move right into our invocation with our Rick Martin, and then again, Board, if you and the citizens of Douglas County, if you could remain standing for the pledge to the flag. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, staff. If we may bow our heads, please. Oh, gracious Heavenly Father, we come gathered to you before this morning's Board of Commissioners meeting for a legislative agenda that we ask for your guidance and purpose. Lord, we've just finished Thanksgiving, and as we are gathered here, we ask for a sense of gratitude for the legislative leaders who are gathered this morning to make decisions as public servants. We thank you, Lord, for our first responders and continue to ask for their protection as they service the community. As difficult as life is, we ask for your patience. We ask for continued blessings as we overcome the challenges through a pandemic and any potential fear from any further variants. Lord, we ask that you look after our leaders, our elected officials, whether they're here today or gathered in the building, for protection and guidance. And we pray for continued support in whatever they do. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Director Martin, for rendering our invocation this morning, and also Board of Commissioners and the citizens of Douglas County for engaging in our pledge to the flag. Clerk, do we have anyone sign up for public comment this morning?
No, Chairman, only for the public hearing.
Okay, only for the public hearing. Oh, thank you so much. With that being said, Board of Commissioners, we'll move right into our minutes. Board of Commissioners, we will certainly approve or deny accordingly. Board of Commissioners, you have before you the Commission minute meetings of November 17, 2021, the work session minutes of November 17, 2021, the budget retreat minutes of November 18, 2021, and the executive session minutes of November 16th and November 18th in 2021. Do we have, are there any needs for an addition, deletions, or corrections at this time, Board of Commissioners?
No, ma'am.
If none, the minutes stand approved. Board of Commissioners, I'm adding something to the agenda this morning, certainly at your will, regarding our capital transportation plan that's coming forth. And certainly would like our Director of Transportation, Miguel Valentin, to come forth with us. And certainly we look forward to a wonderful presentation being rendered this morning. And certainly, Director will allow you to introduce the members of the capital transportation planning effort.
So Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. This morning, we have the team from VHB, who are the consultants working on the Comprehensive Transportation Plan update. They provided an update yesterday, but this is another opportunity for the board and the public to hear the findings of the effort that they have undertaken over the last 15 months or so to update the county's transportation plan, which is a guide for the next 30 years or so. So without further ado, I will introduce the team from VHB, and they'll come up and give you a brief summary of the information that they have gathered.
Thank you so much, Director.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Eh,
Mr. Ponce.
My name is Fabricio Pons with VHB, as you probably already know.
Yes.
As Miguel indicated, yesterday we gave you an overview of basically the process, how it went and where we are at. So I'm going to give you basically, I'm going to go quickly over similar information, but at any point in time, if you have any questions, anything, just please feel free to stop me. And if not, at the end, we can have some questions. So,
Madam Chair, just to say, if you could just, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair and the board, just to do highlights of the findings. I'm not, because we got a long agenda, we got this hearing, and we just want,
Yes.
I'm not certain how long it's going to take this technological fit, but to not lose the momentum.
Okay, sounds good. You want to just proceed and
do
then,
you want me just to
yeah,
go
and
ahead?
introduce the members of your team?
Okay.
That would be nice.
Here with me today is Grady Smith with VHB.
Thank
and
you.
Michael Hightower.
Thank
with
you.
the collaborative firm that supported us with all the public engagement activities.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
I'm going to, okay, well, I'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
That's fine. We figured it
That's
out.
fine.
I'll move forward. So we started working on this comprehensive transportation plan in early June 2020, so it's been a little bit over a year. The time frame that we're looking at is between now and the year 2050, so it's roughly 29 years into the future. There are multiple reasons why we do this. Of course, it's to plan ahead, identify transportation infrastructure needs, identify not only the needs, but also the potential funding opportunities. But one of the things that it's really relevant regarding this plan is how we identify those opportunities and allow us to position ourselves for the potential for state and federal funding. As I mentioned to you yesterday, this was very relevant a little bit over a year ago. It's even more relevant today with the infrastructure plan in place. So we developed this plan with that in mind, with that being part of the thought process. So what we did is we identified different transportation needs to support the development and the future and the economic development in Douglas County. These transportation needs were classified into roadway needs, into additional maintenance. That's something that we found that it's a key for the county, that there's definitely a need for additional maintenance. Also, active transportation, which is basically bike and ped facilities, and also from a transit perspective. So we identify those needs, and then, of course, the next step was to put a price tag to these needs, figure out, okay, how much money we're talking about. This was not done in the vacuum. This was done in collaboration with our cities, but also with the Georgia Department of Transportation, with the ARC, with multiple different partners that work with us along this project. So, as I said, we figured out, okay, what are these needs? What's the price tag of these needs? And now, let's figure out how much, if we making reasonable assumptions, how much really money we have, how much local funds we have. I don't think it's gonna, and one basic assumption that we had to make is that the SPLOST, or the level of funding for transportation currently included in the SPLOST, would continue all the way to the year 2050. The main reason for that is that because right now, and as you heard yesterday, funding for transportation for the general fund is very limited. So in a way, if we do not have this SPLOST, it's almost like we don't really have a plan. We don't really have much revenue to be able to afford a transportation improvement. So that was the base scenario. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna come to anyone's surprise that just this SPLOST by itself is not enough to cover all the transportation needs anticipated between now and 2050. Therefore, we run several different scenarios, and those scenarios combined different funding options, not only from a local perspective, but also if we take those additional funding options, additional funding from a local perspective, hopefully we will be able to take them and leverage and get more state and local funds. And that really would be the ideal combination, the ideal solution. So there's no silver bullet, unfortunately, but if we combine additional local revenue with leveraging them and getting additional state funds, we would be able to, at the end of the day, afford the plan. As I mentioned, this includes many different roadway projects, includes maintenance, basically assumes doubling the current level of maintenance that we have today. And that's what would be kind of like the minimum necessary to maintain our roadways. Also includes additional transit service. This is something that in the future, the need is going to increase. We're coming out of, we hope we're coming out of this pandemic. So the transit system has been in place for a relatively short period of time, and was only in place for a relatively short period of time before the pandemic. So one of the things that we are recommending is to reassess this new system, see what's happening, what's in place. So basically conduct a transit master plan to really identify what's needed. To be completely candid, ideally this would need to be done when things start getting back to normal a little bit more, because right now still things would be heavily impacted by current conditions, but that's something that we are recommending. So at the end of the day, as conclusions, as I said, we have approximately 150 projects that we identified, and then different funding options to be able to fund them. So that's kind of, not in a nutshell, but in 5-6 minutes, the plan.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Board of Commissioners, you have any questions for Mr. Ponce? Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, team, VHB, for being here, Mr. Ponce, Ms. Smith, Mr. Hightower. Yes, there was a fuller presentation to the public yesterday. You can go look at the details of it, and of course, we have something on our website that gives you this amount of paper that you can read regarding our full needs. Remind me, how many projects came out of our CTP that you guys enumerated?
I don't recall the exact
Miguel?
number, Commissioner, but it's 150 plus. It's 151, 152 projects.
151 projects. And yesterday you mentioned it's roughly what, about 2.3 billion total need?
It's roughly 2.1
All right,
billion.
2.1, and then
Billion with a
700
B.
million out of that. So about $1.4 billion is going to be federal and state subsidized.
That is correct.
773 is what we think as a local match. Now, I needed this,
703.
got it, 700 million. I need
Yes.
short math. You don't want me to be linear up here. My point, I'm trying to show, these are big numbers.
No question about it.
Your annual budget is 100 million. I know it's 104 point, okay, let's not do that. 700 million is the need. Our annual budget is what? 100 million. Yesterday, it was established by Miguel Valentin that the annual contribution we put into infrastructure is $2 million. That's 2% of our annual budget, but your need is 773. You got those who built their houses from, what, the 50s to the 80s, and then those who built them houses to the 90s to now. Roads have not been repaved or resurfaced in 40 years in my generation, let alone the ones prior to me. They've been touched. Don't get me wrong. I'm making a context. Earlier this year, we also did a strategic planning process. We appreciate what Linus Savage, those guys over at Lionheart Consulting who came here and aligned everything. This has been a 6-month, I mean, not only with CTP, which is 15 months, but it was aligned everything. Right, so when we come in here and talk about an annual budget, it must be tied to somewhere. It's not about staff buying, shiny objects and in the corner spending $100 million. No, it has to tie to a bigger picture. What were the priorities? What were the priorities? Right, so we recognize public safety was important. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. We recognize that economic development and transportation was important. Right, what were the priorities and how do you manifest that here in our policies, in the appropriations we do? So when citizens and we appreciate their input and their, when are y'all gonna do this? Okay, y'all know how much this stuff costs? And it's not a bad thing, we're just saying, work with us. Right, and so we show trade-offs not to overemphasize the 2009 SPLOST, but that was $150 million worth of concrete. That would at least been, what, a fifth of a year's need. This 77.3, guys, look at the math, over 30 years, that means that's $25 million a year, and we only put up $2 million a year. We can't get there in your lifetime unless we use different mechanisms that the state legislature gives us, like SPLOST and T-SPLOST. And so while we have these public hearings, it's to engage the citizens. This is not about a spend. This is a real need. And so we appreciate the education. That's what we spend. $1 million like this is what we're doing, obviously, to get in here and do this work. So here's my question. I know you got us this capital transportation plan. I won't belabor this. And we're going to go, next meeting, we're going to actually adopt this and present it to the ARC. And it's a formal checklist. We are required by statutory to do this planning process. But the question is, it's great to have this inch thick of paper if you don't do nothing with it. Right? You're taxed every year. The question is, well, how are you applying? What are your priorities? And even within that $700 million, what are the priorities within there? So we're now finally engaging citizens in a way that's intelligent. It's just not politically convenient about my friends over here in this community. Like, no, it's intentional. You guys were engaged. We're acting on what you told us you wanted to do, and so we're just making it clear. So I'm going to bring home with this final question. So what would it take to now that we've got this plan we adopted, I heard we said we needed to revisit some things, and so I'm just going to put this on my tab, Madam Chair, is that, all right, so Mr. Ponce, what would it take to, what is about $500,000 to look at our transit? I know we put up, what, $2 million per year, and we had to put up $500,000, even I know the feds have looked at this. What would it take to do formal planning regarding transportation for implementation?
I think you're in the ballpark.
All right.
$500,000 is
All right, so
it's a
again,
reasonable amount.
I recognize Madam Guider has brought up in time past. We know we're part of a 3-year pilot, but the pandemic threw us off. But we're going to revisit this. And so we need to make sure we're assigned that. We know we're sitting on, we'll talk about that in a minute regarding our fund balance, but we really need to be intentional about what we're doing in the design. So Madam Miller, Interim Director of Finance, please put down on my tab $500,000 to this is an assignment, not within the budget, it's within our fund balance to deal with this. I appreciate it. Perfect timing. Thank you for the mic. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield.
Okay,
We're good.
thank you. Any other remarks from the board? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you
It's
for your
very
time.
thorough, and certainly we have a 30-year playbook in place, and this would be great to see as it aligns with the transportation infrastructure plan coming down from the federal government. And I'm just so excited, and I want to commend the team that worked with. We had a team that was local, I believe, Director Valentin, that were local citizens that had involvement with this as well, and I thank them as well on behalf of the Board of Commissioners. And thank you, VHB, and for all the great things that y'all have done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate you. All right, Board of Commissioners, what leads us right into our public hearing for our proposed 2022 budget. We have a public hearing that's coming before us this morning regarding our budget, proposed budget. Thank you. And we have Rosalind Miller, who's our interim finance director, who will be presenting this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
You won't have the luxury of doing all that. You just got to do it from here.
Oh, thanks. Okay, well, good morning.
Good morning.
And this morning, we will be presenting your 2022 proposed budget. Next slide, please. Yesterday, when presenting, I did hear the board mention, I guess, how did we get here? And I do want to mention that we did receive requests from the departments that totaled $114 million. And because you have a policy in place, a financial policy in place, it helped guide us through this process. And per the policy, you see that your proposed revenue can have to be less than your 2021 estimated revenue, meaning last year. So for this budget year, we can use last year, we have to use last year's revenue, which last year's revenue was 104. And by law, the government for general fund, you have to have a balanced budget. So therefore, it forces control and review of expenditures to come in line with that 104. So the 114 million had to be reduced to 104 or less. And that is your financial policy guideline that the board put in place last year. So that helped with this process. Next slide, please. So speaking of the expenditure, as I mentioned, expenditures have to be 104 or less. So reviewing all of the expenditures and your proposed 2020 budget is 103, $103 million. Again, it had to be less than 104. So your 2022 proposed budget is in line with your financial policy because we are below the revenue, and therefore we're anticipating putting $1 million back into your fund balance. Next slide, please. I'm showing my age, but okay. And the next slide. This represents another aspect of your policy. It calculates your fund balance. So per your policy for 2022, it states that your fund balance the minimum is cannot be lower than 12% of your expenditures. And as you see on this slide, we're anticipating your estimated unrestricted fund balance to be at 25%. So that means you're in line. That means your fund balance is 25% of your expenditures. And with that, we did subtract $3.3 million, and that is reserved for capital outlay. And also, that would make you still in balance and not under the 12%. And your unrestricted fund balance is funds that can be allocated to operations of your general fund. Your actual fund balance is around $40 million, but you have obligations that you have to subtract from that number, meaning you have outstanding POs or any other item or project that the board has asked to set aside funding for. So the 40 million becomes the 25.7 million of your unrestricted fund balance. And so we subtracted obligations and then also reserves for your capital outlay. Next slide, please. The next slide is your revenue, and there's the 104, that is your guideline for revenue is 104. And as you can see, the biggest portion of your revenue is property taxes and then loss. Also with the budget, we had to make some assumptions to be in line with last year's revenue. And those assumptions are, we used the same as your 2021 budget for your property tax. We used a 93 collection rate, and also there's no new growth or a new growth or reassessment in that 104. Next slide, please. Your next is your expenditures, and again, we're under the 104. Your expenditures are 103.5 million, and as you can see, again, your 2022 budget, just like your 2021 budget, priority is public safety. Some things that are included in your 2022 budget, we have election year, so therefore it's election year's budget has increased from last year. Public works, there's for beautification projects of 6 mowing cycles. Also last year, you didn't have only half a year, you had the new senior center and rec center. So what's included is a whole year of operations. And also there is no additional to core, meaning no capital or additional staff. Next slide, please. The next is the same as your same revenue, your same expenses, but it's identified in categories. You can see your biggest portion of the category is for your human capital, and that's your salaries and benefits. Next slide, please. The next slide, you'll see general fund, history of your general fund of your revenue, recurring and non-recurring revenue. On this slide, if you can see in the far left column, you see your 2022 proposed budget. You see the 104, and we're speaking of revenue. You see the 104. However, the non-recurring revenue is revenue that you're not going to receive every single year. So we've asked, so we did add 3.8 million as non-recurring revenue. As you recall that the board has approved for your regular full-time employees to receive 5% in year 2022 and to receive 5% in year 2023. Your public safety, 10% in your 2022 budget, and then 5% in your 2023 budget. So, however, it's coming from a funding source, ARPA, to offset that expenditure. So it's not coming from your general fund balance, it has another funding source, so therefore we identify it as non-recurring revenue. Next slide, please. The next is your proposed general fund, and it's by categories. And I'll read the categories. The first slide shows your general government, and that is 28,355,890. You have your judicial, the total is 17,813,288. You have your public safety, which is $36,941,990. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. The next, you have your public works, and you have $7,950,473. Next slide, please. You have your health and welfare at $2,734,152. You have your parks and recreation. Proposed budget is $6,814,476. Next, you have your planning and community development, and their proposed budget category is $2,966,815. And that totals your 2022 general fund proposed budget at $103,577,084. At the bottom, you see the beginning unassigned fund balance. That means all obligations have been subtracted out, and that's 28 million. And then if you add the million, that revenue over expenses, your ending fund balance estimated for 2022 will be 29 million. And that is 28% of your expenditures. Next slide, please. Next slide gives you a summary of general fund and also your fund balance. So if you look in the far column where it has budget of 2022, you see the total ending for 2021 is $40.6 million. That's how we're estimating that you would end your 2021 budget. So if you add the million that is anticipated for your 2022 proposed budget, you'll get a total of $41.6 million. And that is your fund balance. But that includes your obligations. So that's your total fund balance. It's not all, you cannot spend that whole $40.6 million. So at the bottom, we're subtracting $12.5 million, which is obligations, and that's how we come up with the 29 million. And towards the bottom, as I mentioned before, that is the initiative for regular class and public safety of their salary increases. Again, it's not going to affect your fund balance this year, or 2022, or 2023. However, in 2024, it will affect your fund balance if you don't have revenue to match. Because per your policy, if you have an expenditure, you have to have, and if it's a recurring expenditure, which it will be because it's salaries, you're going to have a recurring revenue to offset it. And if not, that amount will come out of fund balance. So I just did an estimate if everything stayed the same and we are in year 2024, that your fund balance would drop down and you would be at 23%. Next slide, please. The next is proposed additions to core, and there has been a lot of discussion with this in this section. This was the department's request, and it totaled $30 million. However, I've been speaking with each board member, and I know that you have tabs. So out of this list, we have priorities from the board that we're continue to work on. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. The next is other funds. Other funds are totally separate from general fund. Other funds have revenue, receive revenue also, or charges for services to cover their expenditures. The first fund that we'll discuss is your unincorporated fund. And as you see the revenue listed, we're anticipating $11.3 million for your 2022 budget for your unincorporated. Next slide, please. Next slide states the expenditures. Your total expenditures for your unincorporated is $9.4 million. We're anticipating that this the fund balance of your unincorporated will end at $3.8 million this year. And if you add the 1.9 as anticipated for your 2022 budget, that revenues will be more than expenditures by 1.9, you will be adding that to your fund balance for your uninked, and your total fund balance for your uninked will be $5.8 million, which is 62% of expenditures. Next slide, please. The next slide is your fire protection services and EMS. We're anticipating receiving $17 million in revenue for your fire protection service and EMS fund. We're anticipating for 2021 that the expenditures will be in line with the revenue, so it's going to be a balanced budget. We're estimating that your 2021 fund balance in your fire protection service fund would end at $937,000. And since this budget will be balanced, your fund balance will remain the same. Next slide, please. Next is your animal control services. We're anticipating $1.4 million for your animal control services, and expenditures will be $1.5. In this fund, you have more expenditures than revenue, so we're anticipating that you would need $55,224 to balance the animal control services budget. And that amount will come from your fund balance. We're estimating your 2021 fund balance would be $121,000. And if you minus the $55,000 that you need to balance this budget, you would have a remaining $66,000 in your animal control fund balance. Next slide, please. The next slide is special revenue. And again, these are special revenue. They're restricted for the items. And most of these are also statutorial, that you do have to follow guidelines and laws for these funds. So in your special revenue fund, you have we're estimating $9.4 million would be the proposed budget. And again, you have revenue to offset all expenditures. Next slide, please. The next is your capital fund, and this is your biggest capital fund, and it's your 2016 SPLOST. We're anticipating about $16.9 million in expenditures. For 2022 would be your last year paying for the debt service at $4.1 million. You have your enterprise fund, which is your solid waste, and the proposed budget for your solid waste is $2.8 million. And then you have your internal services fund, which includes your health insurance and also workers' comp. And that fund is $16.9 million. Next slide. So where do we go from here? Today is the public hearing. You have from now to December the 14th to make changes to the budget. December 14th is the budget adoption, and of course, January 1 is when your 2022 budget will be in effect, and we're on a calendar year, so it's from January through December. That's all.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Rosalind. With that being said, if you have no further comments, and I'm certainly going to open up this public hearing. This public hearing is now open. Do we have anyone here to speak? Yes, you could come forward. Lisa, can you state who's coming? I know her name, but I wanted you to state for the public.
Yes, ma'am. Just as a reminder, if you could state your name and address for the record, and just remember you have 3 minutes to address the board. When you reach that 3 minutes, we'll ask you to wrap up your comments. Okay?
Hi, Sharon Bachtel, 6331. Oh. Sharon Bachtel, 6331 South Skyline Drive. Commissioners, why did you schedule a public hearing so soon after releasing this budget? The citizens need more than 18 hours to study it. In 2020, both sessions of the budget retreat were on video. This year, there is no video, and the budget retreat minutes are incomplete. We should be given adequate time to prepare for a public hearing. I have a few questions about this budget. First, I would like to know why the Community Service Board is going from a 2021 budget of $1,014,776 to $509,007, which is less than the $989,776 budget in 2020. Is this because of outside funding? Second, I would like an explanation on the commissioners' increases in budgets. 3 commissioners' budgets are increasing by more than $25,000. The taxpayers need to see the reason for these increases to make sure they are not in violation of Georgia Code 36-35-4, which states you have to wait 1 year to receive these funds. This year, $5,000 was spent on maintaining 3 Facebook pages, of which 2 were for personal use. If this is the type of expense this extra money is being used for, I believe it violates the law. Next, I would like to know why the coroner's budget is being doubled. This year, she started out with a budget of $210,015, according to the October finance report, and ended in November with a $470,015 budget. Her budget doubled because in April, you put an extra $30,000 in her pocket and gave money for fencing, an office move, 4 new vehicles with equipment. These were not on the BIR list voted at the beginning of the year. On this document, her budget for 2021 is $216,738 and will be increasing to $440,144 in 2022. My question is why? What is she using the extra money for? Does a coroner who does not do her job deserve more money? At the end of September, she had investigated less than 1/3 of the deaths. There were 302 deaths investigated, and of those, she did only 83. The law states that deputy coroners act only when the coroner is not available. Our coroner is never available. Even with an office assistant, she does not have a record of how many deaths her office investigated in 2020. Why is the sheriff's budget being reduced by $4 million? Are you defunding the police? According to your survey, the citizens want you to concentrate on public safety, such as firemen and sheriff deputies. The coroner's budget should come down and the sheriff's budget should increase. I hope you will take my comments into consideration and provide clarification on my questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Batchel. Is anyone else here to speak for or against this budget? Okay. All right. If we don't have any more comments, this public hearing is closed. Thank you so much, Ms. Batchel. All right. Any discussion, Board of Commissioners, regarding the budget? Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Absolutely. I mean, this is that time, this is our primary job, is to set the budget. And I appreciate the comments, those that are written and so forth. Again, this is not about a spend, right? It's about appropriation. I'll speak to the commissioner straight out the block, so I'll cover it tomorrow in much more detail. We don't have to do it the way that you've done it in the past. It's about being available to your very point. You've got 35,000 citizens, how do you serve them? Ask our teachers, when you got 45 students to grade, you have no GRAs, anybody to support you, you gotta keep up with this. People are not here in the evenings, right? You have people who are awake during the day. I've got a citizen that calls me, he's 90 years old, Mr. Robinson, this kind of line thing is a problem and stuff, and y'all not like, and I have to answer it. And I have to be there. If I've got to be in one meeting versus another, I've got to send my staff to go do this. This is not a rural county anymore. This is what, the 9th most dense in the state? The 11th to 12th most populous? It's a mindset. I appreciate that. I get it. Now, let's talk about, I like the questions. Oh, infrastructure, technology, really? I got a town hall tomorrow, and I was told yesterday that we can't support you, Mr. Robinson, so yeah, I may have to spend another $2,000 because our infrastructure cannot support this. Because 10 years, you didn't put anything into both your technological infrastructure nor your physical infrastructure. You have treated this county like an interest only, and it is come due the principal note. Stay with me. You're gonna have to go deeper than that on how dollars are being spent. You gotta go deeper. You gotta do better than that. Now, I just had to address that, but again, I'll go in more detail tomorrow about some of the comments. Because I look at the lean, it's like, okay, now why are you focusing on just the new minority people? Like this is convenient, but like this is a consistent theme. I can't let that get away with it. It's too critical because you're not looking any elsewhere. Doing your job, I like to see some of y'all go help our bereaved. It's actually a disgrace to me, personally, only me. You're like, wait a minute, you know what they do? They care. They took an oath to go out there and, like, really? You don't have to put one citizen down, one elected official down to make a point about another. It's too sharp. Untie it, because it does hit back. The narrative's like, okay, well, I guess we all get in this ring. And we got the sheriff, but you don't have to disparage the coroner to make a point about the sheriff. That's old. That's not Douglas. And this hearing is about how we're appropriating for the greater good. Like we're going to take care of public safety. Right? We're advocating for them. We'll talk about a little bit later about that focus. But that's important. All right, so talk about the budget. Let me move on. I had to just address the questions in the hearing. Now I can ask my question. All right, so real quick, Rosalind Miller, come back, please. Pretty please. You ready?
Yes.
All right, just a couple of highlights. So again, let's go back to the wages that, if our budget is $100 million for easy math, don't make this hard, guys. What did you say, was it 60% or 65 as salary? 60 or 65%? You said it yesterday.
They say 65.
Which one? 65?
Yes.
All right, 65%. And it was 30% is the other operating stuff, right?
That is correct.
All right, so stay with me for those who want to talk about math. 65 plus 30 is what? 95. It's done. We want to talk about the spending. of the Board of Commissioners. So if 95% of the budget is already done, is baked, is core out the gate, what are we really talking about? A nickel, 5%. How many times have we educated the public over the past 4 or 5 years on, don't perpetrate about what you understand about what we're doing? All right, so 5%. So we take what, $2 or $3 million and we use it for whatever, capital, et cetera. So as you heard her say yesterday and today, all we're talking about the Board of Commissioners is $1 million, 1 penny, 1% is what we're gonna talk about. But what did you tell me to need? Your total, staff need, county administrator, was $114 million. You couldn't do that. Then you got another set of lists of Constitution, everybody else, is $30 million. So that's what, 30 million plus 14 million, is 45 million, and all we're really debating about is a penny. I see. All right, I got it, but I'm going, so my question, this is the hearing time, turn that back off. All right, so regarding this, because this we only got right now. Next time we come, we're approving the budget. All right, so this money is important in how we appropriate. We get to priorities, but we all get to weigh in differently. Right, we all get to weigh in from our each perspective. All 4 of us, plus Madam Chair, get to shape a penny. We get to sponsor somebody that may be elected to need a little bit more help. In other words, we got all this need, but our vote matters. A district commissioner or anybody else, we got 1 vote, and it has heat, it has weight, and it matters. So who gets in this year with limited need? Right, that's about sponsorship. And I'm educating the public so they understand why we do what we do. What's our priority? Each one of us has a different priority set. Now, we may land on public safety as a mutual, but we got different interests. It's not homogeneous. And it all has to be respected. And at the end of the day, if you get 3 people to get together and they land on the same answer, that's what it is. So, Rosalind, let me make sure, operating budget. Let's go back. My last point is, we talked about, I agree with the citizen who said about this year's budget process. It grieved me. And if nobody know, we've been consistent over 13 years on how the budget process works. I had a fundamental problem of the shotgun. Yes, Ms. Bechtel, 100%, I am with you. Don't do the public like that. I warned, and I warned. Don't tamper with this. Don't sleight of hand them on this money. Educate them, let them see this. No slick, I appreciate the pretty book. Don't do the public like that. I'm with you 100. I'm sure they heard my voice recently. Is that because, again, you got to take the time, let them be engaged in the process. But here's the thing, Ms. Bechtel, is that staff are not connected to y'all like we are. And we have to remind them every now and then. And the public needs to know this. I'm with you 100% on that one right there. All right, so Rosalind, as it relates to the operating budgets for the Board of Commissioners, we talked about it in our retreat. There was a desire. Again, right, just like with Congress, just like the General Assembly, just like Congressman Scott, just like Senator Ossoff and Warnock, they have budgets. Correct, we shouldn't have to go over to the general fund and pull stuff out. We need a dedicated budget like everybody else that's elected, like all other department heads, so you really can't keep up with us. How do we deal with travel? How do we deal with training? How do we deal with our staff? So yes, you need to have a dedicated line item so you can keep up with this. Versus the way they normally would do it, you just taking it out of the general fund. Like, guys, why are y'all doing that? So each one of us can be accountable for that. So Rosalind, did we get that in the budget? Can you remind me?
Yes, that is part of your tab.
Okay.
So yes, we have that listed.
All right, so
Yes.
we're proposing, so again, this is my
That you'll
last
have your
point.
separate
is-
budget.
Right, we all got a staff of 1. That means the 4 district commissioners, whether they use it or not relevant, because what I get, the next person get. That's the way it works. So we got, everybody gets we all on the 3rd floor have basically 1 dedicated person to us. Right, all 5 of us, plus the county administrator. So what's being proposed is that we all get to run our west wing, to run our 3rd floor. Those who are dedicated to our personal offices, they must have a staff. We must keep up with the training and stuff for that 1 person as well as the operations. So what is it, about $110,000 total?
Yes.
right? There you go. So 110 for each of us for our day-to-day. Not dipping into the general fund to make stuff happen. It's a dedicated budget that we can operate with it. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that question. Thank you for asking that. So it's actually 110,000 that's being proposed. Again, the board will determine what that ultimately is, but that's the goal. So you don't have to go search for nothing. It's right there. This is how much I use on travel. I went to 3 cities, except that's my travel. Right? I had to go do this. Yes, I have to fund my, if we've got laryngitis in our technological, then how am I gonna get my voice out there to the public? There ain't gonna be no canceling my culture, canceling my communication. Oh, I will make a way. Oh yeah, well, you're not using that money. We done brought in consultants. They not here. Oh, we got room. It's about reappropriating. If you don't want to use it, we'll take it back and put it back. I'd like, Madam, gotta claw that thing back if you ain't gonna use it right. But anyway, we're trying to do this thing different, becoming more stable, more centralized. I'm going to yield for right now, Madam Chair, and let everybody else go, and I'll yield for right now.
Okay. Any other comment? Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Goddard, you have the floor.
Yes, I will address Rosalind. And we went over some of this yesterday, but the same people don't watch that. This year, what is our collection rate for 2021 as of today? Do you know?
As of today, no, I don't know yet, because we haven't collected everything. So towards the end of the year,
When, their due date is
the
what?
5th, I believe it's the 15th, yeah, December
Okay,
15th.
but you don't know what collection rate they're at this point?
No, we haven't
Okay.
received the majority of the
Well,
collection.
we're using a 93% tax collection rate in this budget, and you explain why, because of our policy. We might want to relook at some of our policy, because we're padding the budget. The reason I say that is most likely it's going to be around 96%. That's what was used for many years when the new tax commissioner came in. He used 96, and I think it was before then, 96. That's the norm, okay? So we're going to collect a lot more money than what you're estimating your revenues at. So where does that money go?
It goes to your fund balance. That's the purpose of the policy, because if you didn't have the policy, you would have more expenditures. Instead of your expenditure, your budget being 103.
But you're only anticipating that, you're estimating 93% when most everybody up here knows we'll collect 96%. So that's going to be a windfall to the county.
That is correct, and it will go to your fund balance.
Okay, so over and above the 29 million.
That is correct.
Okay. I do a trending every month, and the last one we received was the October 31st, and I'm trending 7 million under expenditures. Is that figure incorporated in this budget at all?
Yes, that's another, we use in trending, looking at the expenditures, we did look at how the departments are doing now. So yes, you're absolutely right. For your 2021 budget, you are about 6% under budget. So your 2022 reflects closely to that.
You've incorporated, because I think I asked you this once before, and I thought you said no, that you did not include what we would not spend. in the
Yes, I
budget.
didn't include what we would not spend. What you have before you, your proposed, is what is needed to run the government. So it's no padding in the budget at all. But you're absolutely right that based off of your policy, it states that you have to have last year's revenue. And yes, we all know that you're going to receive more revenue. But it would be the board's decision what to do with that revenue come July of next year. When you set the millage rate, you decide, if you want to increase the budget or put it into fund balance.
Okay, so adjustments for the budget may be coming down the road, is what you're saying?
Yes, if the board.
You also have included no growth in the digest. I think we just hired somebody to go over the personal property accounts. If they come back with no growth, we should fire them because they're not doing their job. It was estimated that personal property was way below what it should be. And we issued a contract for someone to go out and examine just that area of the digest. So we should show some growth.
I totally agree, yes.
Yeah.
But again, just based off of, we're just doing it based off of policy, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
I
and
think that the Douglas County is going to look real, it's healthy. Because of the decisions that the board has made, the policies, I think you have options. You're going to have options and to be able to do, things and
Yeah.
kind of what you were hearing about the transportation infrastructure. You're going to have options. But you're absolutely right.
so the policy states that we're to show no growth?
No, it's just those were our assumptions to come back to that number, to come to the
So
104
we
last
backed
year.
into
Right, you have to,
that figure?
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, but that's backdoor policy, is what I'm saying.
No, you just have to,
We know we're going to have growth. We know we're going to have millions of dollars left over from the 2021.
right, but it would be
And we know we're
different.
going to have more collections, is what I'm saying.
You're absolutely right, but it would be different if your proposed budget was $114 million, and you don't have any justification, that's padding. If your assumption is we're going to be at 97%, we're going to receive $8 million more in revenue, and so now we're going to add additional
may-
bodies.
Maybe I should say, it seems like we're padding the revenues.
No, padding the revenues if we had our revenues at 114 million.
But we know we're going to have probably, I would say, another 5-6 million, if not more than that.
Right.
So it could be up to 10 million more. So that's what I'm getting at, just from these figures, Now, just real quickly, why, on tax commissioner, why did his budget go up $1 million? Was there?
His software.
We did not personally see each elected official or department head, so I'm asking
That's
just for my own.
It was his software system. I believe that is.
That was last year,
Yeah, but he has to pay each year.
$1 million.
No, it was about
300.
$300.
$1 million.
Yeah, and I could give you the details of what has increased in his budget, but I know the biggest increase is his software.
Well, the software was in 2021 budget, I think.
Yeah, but he didn't use it because towards the end, I believe the board approved the contract. Yeah.
So it's going to roll over into 2022?
I have to take a look at it,
This
but
is
I
the-
know it is his
It's already
software system.
installed.
Yeah, but he has maintenance on that software system. I can give you the detail
Okay.
and
Okay,
we have details of the items, but I know the biggest is software.
okay. I did not see that the sheriff's budget went down, but 400,000.
Yeah, that's, yeah. it
Not
didn't.
4 million. I do see that. Now, Ms. Backville, you can turn that off, by the way. Let's go up to the coroner. Now, the coroner received a bunch of money, like Ms. Is it Bechtel? Bechtel, okay. Last year, So what is the difference in this year?
I have to see her detail. I don't recall a big increase.
It doubled.
Yeah, I would have to check to see exactly the line item, so I'll have
You
that.
may have adjusted the 2021 budget and you didn't put it in there.
That could be, too, but I'll let you know. I'll compare, but, you know, if it's in line, I'll let you know exactly what's in there. And then
Okay.
from there, we can, you can make amendments, adjust it.
Well, I just wondered, and then somewhere, and I can't remember where it was, and I know this is the chairman's baby. 6 cuttings, I think that's excessive. I would say 4 cuttings would be ample. That'd be $200,000 savings.
Okay,
We
I'll
might
put that
want to
down for you.
consider that.
Okay.
And maybe put it in contingency.
Okay.
Or, this showed it somewhere, I thought I circled it, but these slides don't really coincide with all of your slides. You had a lot more.
Yeah, this is more in detail.
Here it is, it's on page 7.
Okay.
It says 6 mowing cycles, and I know, last year, I think we had cut it down to 3 or something, but 4 has always been adequate, I thought. But, anyway, it's 100,000 per mowing,
Okay.
so,
So you want me to put that down?
well,
As your
that would be
tag?
my suggestion.
Okay.
But, okay, for right now, I'll yield back. Thank you.
And I'll provide you the detail too, Commissioner.
Let's pivot back to the mowings a little bit. Certainly, I worked in tandem with our Director of Transportation, and his team is on the ground cutting the grass. Well, you know, he works with those vendors, and he just said 3 to 4 is just not enough, Commissioner, cuts. Which I want to wiggle with you on 5 cuts, maybe. Director Valentin, certainly you have an opportunity to see the grass grow as well as myself, and you suggested 6 with me. So what are your thoughts? Can you come up for a minute? I just want to make sure we're good, because this is for the citizens, that the grass being cut. This is that's their request.
I didn't think he was over right away.
Yes, Madam Chair. Actually, what I suggested we should consider was 8 mowing cycles
You really did.
rather than the 6.
Grief.
And the 6 apparently was a compromise to be more in line with the budget. But what happens essentially is if you have any kind of sustained rain, grass grows, and on 4 mowing cycles a year, you're actually having the grass cut once every 2 months. Now, your own lawns, if you have a service or you do it yourself, you want to do that at least every couple of weeks, some places every week. So my recommendation was actually to go to 8 cycles, which would be a monthly cut over the growing season. But 6 is a compromise already. I wouldn't recommend anything less than that.
Thank you. Thank you for, Commissioner Guider, I'm just wanted to hear you out a little bit. Yeah, that's the reason why. He said the rain, the citizens are complaining, and certainly we want to make sure that our citizens are happy. It's out there, it's an eyesore when the grass is overgrown and they're complaining, and I can't help them at that point because
I get 1 complaint a year on the grass cutting. And I've got more roadway than anybody. But, I'll go along with it, but I'm just saying, I thought it was excessive.
Yeah, it was 8, and then we drilled down to 6.
Well, we don't meet with the department heads like you do, and
And I did. I worked with them to try to, certainly 8 was what was proposed, and we were able to just tick down to 6 cuts. So I'm just asking on behalf of the citizens of Douglas County so they can just see experience their tax dollars by when they're riding along the roads and also that encompasses litter pickup as well, right? Yes. So we need the litter picked up as well. So thank you for compromising with me, Commissioner. Ms. Batchel, well, let me check with you. Commissioner Mitchell, do you
I did.
Okay.
I was just waiting to let you guys finish.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, and I'll be brief. Rosalind, I'm sorry. And we're gonna have that same conversation we had yesterday, that's all. So if you'll just, for the public, so we'll understand, how does this budget, entails or wrap or be a part of the ARPA fund when it comes to the salary, more than anything. So if you would just kind of reiterate what we talked about yesterday, if you would, please.
Okay. So again, we're receiving ARPA funds, and one of the projects or one of the initiatives is for regular employees to receive an increase in pay for 2 years of 5%, and for public safety to receive an increase in salary of 10% and 5% for the 2 years. But after the 2 years, there will not be ARPA funding. So per your policy, you're going to have to establish a funding source to cover the salaries, or it's going to have to come out of your fund balance.
Correct. And just so for the record that people understand that, in 2 years from now, that we'll be looking at, I think, as District 4 Commissioner stated, that I think there will be an increase, whether it's new growth, assessed values, and so on. And I think that's the anticipation of what this board is anticipating with the help of our chief appraiser, and all that he does, and the staffing and the commercial venture that he's on now, not the residential. So with that being stated, I think we probably will see an increase. And I think at that time, and with this budget doesn't entail a potential rollback. This is strictly.
That
okay.
is correct.
See, so with all those variables, and as healthy as we are, I think we could probably see the fruit of our labor 2 years from now. So I think you guys have done a great job at preparing and getting this information out to the general public so they can hopefully understand this. And I do apologize to those citizens who may not have been able to capture this information via the internet. It was taped and all that good stuff. I'm not sure kind of what might have happened. I don't know if we got that out or what might have happened with that information, but my apologies to you on that end. But it was a healthy meeting. You guys did an excellent job. I think we're at least we're having some great dialogue with what we've gotten. This conversation is really healthy. I just think we're getting there. I think there are some adjustments that could be made, and I think we'll have that conversation as we kind of go through this whole process. So great job. I appreciate your conservatism on when it comes to preparing this budget, and I'm glad that we gave you some clear directions with our policies. We just got to respect and adhere to the policies that we put in play. So thank you again,
Well, thank
and I'll
you,
yield back.
Commissioner. Thank
Did I
you.
do good on time? Okay, all right, okay.
You didn't hear the bell.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell.
All right.
Okay. Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Can I have some of your time, Commissioner?
Yeah, I yield my time to Vice
All
Chairman.
right, look at
Yes.
there. Mama. No, but he brings, which I really appreciate Commissioner Mitchell. He just gets right to it. And what he focused on, did you hear what he just said? It was, we on one hand, we say that we're a conservative county. Well, if you are, didn't you just hear what he said? Right, no, steady. Right, no, listen, we're not controlling the assumptions that go in this model. We just said we put that policy in place to make sure that we don't, because again, our eyes get full. You got staff that pitches these budgets, and we're the ones that's supposed to check them. Right, so if you come in there like we did a couple years ago when you had 8 times new growth, pay attention. The policy was to stop that type of behavior from the administration, like, no, this is all you getting. We ain't even got to struggle. I ain't got to figure out where you're going. You get $100 million, that's it. Now, if it comes in greater than that, if the tax commissioner collects it right, good for him, go talk to him. That's the assumption he gave, 93, that's all he's committed to. You can't make him do what you want him to manipulate the numbers. No growth, no, we're gonna assume that it's flat. If it comes in better than that, great, but that's the discipline that you need for this. Like, again, we bring on 2 new buildings. You got a fire station coming on in a minute. You gotta anticipate Some of this stuff, you gotta give room. So unless you sit down and set aside every month, every year for these things, the policy by default ensures that you have additional revenue to cover these things that you're not thinking of, that you don't want to look at. Think about it now. You got a full building, what, 22 people? I don't know the chief out there. You got 22 full-time fire people coming online? Right? In light of we got to take care of people and their salaries and stuff, which we should. But you got room. To her point, her trending, that's 7 million. That's like a little bit more than I would have thought, but okay, we only need about 5. Sounds good to me. Checkmate. Follow the math. You've got room that says, yes, right now we've got a 2-year pass. Thank you, County Administrator. That's right on time, 10 and 5, 5 and 5. Guided buys us some time. You get the commercial right. It's going to be okay. That's what we showed you guys. Look at 10 years. We project that. That's why we brought David Corbin and Termas in here to be able to forecast, because we historically never looked at it. We were always in the political moment. We can do better. But again, one more time, it's not even about that. It's about, like, look, your quality of life. Can you guys pave the roads? Can you get us some services like mental health? Can you take care of the public safety? Can you take care of the front line? Can you do some simple things? Can we get some parks? Can we improve something? Can you clean up the bathrooms out here? So we can get caught up on, like, penny. Why'd you spend this penny over here? Like, look, I can't even think that. I can't deal with that. I'm gonna deal with this up here. How do we take care of these things? Right? So I agree. I appreciate the effort that we're getting there. No, guys, the county is solid. No, it's solid. We had to make some hard decisions. Yes, we had to put some policies in place because now you got a board of commissioners who actually can see, they know what they're looking at. They ain't whispering in your ears and using a political narrative like, no, I can count, guys, no. Blame me, I fixed it. I'm the one who proposed those. I'll take the hit, but now you get to sit here, like you said, you got options now. Now we actually can get some work done. The numbers don't lie. You can manipulate the spreadsheet all you want to, but like, where you going? That policy ain't gonna let you go nowhere. Just let it ride out, let it be what it be, let it happen. We still gotta get to a member chair. I know you're gonna teach us about Omicron or whatever the next variant will come online. Like, no, steady. It ain't over yet, but we're solid for the first time. Healthy fund balance, greater than ever in the history of this county. Solid. Yeah, we gave relief for 5 years. Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell, for reminding about that. Rollback. Steady. But we got work to do. We got to do work on behalf of the citizens, so I won't debate over a penny. Madam Chair, you want 6 cuts or something? Like, cut the grass. That's all they're asking for. I mean, your HOAs hold you to this standard, but you know what, if your grass is too long and it's over the branches of the fence and stuff, like, okay, so why aren't we holding ourselves to the same standard? Why are we putting out substandard type of asphalt in front of people's subdivisions? All right, so they hold themselves to a standard, but yet we just gonna throw some stuff out there. We just go out there and do it ourselves. Like, no, guys. So we as a Board of Commissioners, our narrative has to rise to the occasion what the citizens are really expecting. And you can't be afraid and don't have a backbone about what you believe and stand for. You have to stand up. It's not about asking, it's about advocating on behalf of what the citizens need. You've got a beautiful strategic plan. You've got a beautiful CTP. Much as I try to get them to line everything up, line all the plans up, all the funding sources, now let's have a conversation about the needs of the people. Let's do it like our eyes wide open, that we actually see it. Don't be afraid of the height. I know what it means to be on the board. You're responsible for everything and everybody. I get it. But that's what they sent us down here for, and the oath. So let's show them that we actually know what we're doing. I yield, Madam Chair, I'm good.
All right, thank you so much, Vice Chair, and thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell, and also Commissioner Guider, everyone weighed in. And I'll just close out by saying that we are no longer in good shape for the shape that we're in. We are in the best shape that we've been in 10 years in this county, and that's great. So pleased that our credit is impeccable. We have no debt. Our fiscal policy reform is built on the wings of discipline, and it's just exciting to see. It feels good, certainly after the first 4 years of just looking every moment concerned about whether we were going to, as my mother said, we had to make ends meet. Now our ends are together, so I'm real pleased. But I just wanted to respond to a couple of questions you had, Ms. Batchel, regarding CSB. You said, why is the budget lower this year? Because that funding, we have a funding source built into our ARPA plan for CSB as well. It's about $850, I believe, $850,000 in our ARPA plan. And then also, the reason why their budget changed, because it was $560 at the beginning of last year, 2020, but we had 2 moments where we supported the need for our mental health citizens here in Douglas County. And we provided, I believe, about $300,000 the moment when we provided hazard pay for our public safety officials in 2020. But also we provided about $350, I don't have the number with me, for our CSB, the mental health. They needed support as well. And then we turned around, this Board of Commissioners put some more skin in the game, and we have a Veterans Village that will be open very soon, 14 apartment complex for our, it's a 14-unit apartment complex for our veterans. So we put about $309,000 on the table for the Veterans Village. So that's why that number looks inflated, but we also have support going into 2021 for our certainly Community Service Board as well. So I just want to let you know, no sleight of hand. We are definitely on board with supporting the mental health here in Douglas County, and this board has demonstrated that very robustly. And then also in the Sheriff Department, you said the budget decreased by $4 million. I'm looking at the numbers. The budget didn't increase at all. I'm looking at some numbers here, and last year, so I just quote those numbers to you. The Sheriff Office budget was last year in account 280 was 16, which was 2021. It was $16,622,773. But when we look at the 2022 proposed is $16,250,059, which is slightly a little less. But when I go to the jail, last year in 2021, which is this year, I'm sorry, is $18,909,962. And the proposed going into 2022 is $19,909,498. So I'm just not sure if the information is incorrect on you, but I'm just letting you know I have it here. Thank you so much, Ms. Batchel.
I just want to say, on this paper that I printed out from the budget online,
Ms.
the sheriff enforcement adopted 2021, it says $20,252,401. And then in 2022, it has $16,250,059. I'm just going by what I printed out from your website yesterday.
Yes, ma'am. And probably what it did,
That's $4 million.
well, and I hear you, and probably is capturing those BIRs that we looked at last year that we added to the budget for those cars and things like that. So it may just have it inflated on that end, but that was not adopted last year. So we did go back and for our BIRs and pick up some cars. And I'll certainly take this offline with you, and me and you can go line by line so you can see that actually the Sheriff's Department's budget did not decrease. In fact, it increased. And then in our ARPA funding, we have some dollars allocated for salaries for public safety, which is probably near at least $3.5 million for that public safety component. So just wanted to for the record, I know it's easy for things to get in the news and be mumbled, jumbled, but I want to just set the record straight and let you know that their budget did not decrease. I believe that's all I had. I'd certainly, Ms. Batchel, I would love to meet with you offline because you had some very good questions, and I want to respond to each one to just give you a sense of comfort that our budget is in very good shape, and I'm very pleased, and the board is pleased as well. So, all right, board, if we don't have anything else, Vice Chairman, you have.
Just as a procedural, Madam Chair.
Yes.
All right, so real quick, just for the public, so again, this is the conclusion of the public hearing. County Clerk, can you remind us, the next meeting is not a hearing, it's just the adoption of the actual budget? Can you clarify the rule, the procedure, please?
Correct, that is my understanding. It will just be the adoption of the budget.
All right, so there's no public hearing. There's only one that's required by state law, which we've just had. We appreciate the input. You do have time, like, you guys can reach all of the commissioners perhaps directly or send your comments in to Madam Chair. But again, we recognize that this last meeting that we'll have, we're debating really over a penny. So for the record, again, they kept emphasizing 28 versus 29 million. And that's the revenue above and beyond the expenses, and it needs to be balanced. So it's like, okay, guys, we got to match this. All right, so the question is, what do we spend this? This is when, again, the board begins to sponsor certain things. So we had a constitutional officer retreat meeting as a process in which all the judges, sheriff, everybody got to come before the board. Everybody. And our job is to sit there and to listen to see okay, we hear you. And we'll figure out who we're going to sponsor individually, and then whoever has an aggregate of 3, their stuff goes in. All the board of commissioners' voice matters. There's no, just because you got more tenure versus one person versus this, it does not matter. One vote matters. All right, and so that's the aggregate. So for me, for District 2, I just wanted to highlight this, because this is important, is that you do have the tabs, Rosalind Miller, that you're prepared, and that when we get back together, and I know Commissioner Mitchell, you hadn't weighed in that meeting, but I'm sure you will. We've got, I think you said remind me of what we're over. It's $1,015,000, and we're at $1 million. Remind me of the numbers. I need to hear it from my peers.
So you had $1 million to allocate.
Yep.
And as I mentioned, I've been speaking with each board member, and Madam Chair, she has made some adjustments to her request, to her priority, and she covered the, I guess, what you were short. So now, based off of each board member's priority, you're spending the $1 million, and you're not going over.
So far, but we need to see, like Madam Goddard, she may not like the fact that I like 6 haircuts,
Oh, yes.
right? So for us as board members, that it's not settled. And I'm talking about me.
Right.
No, you don't have that much hair.
Yeah. This was in jest, so no, you get it. So we have to still settle that.
Oh, yes,
So we
definitely.
still got, as Commissioner Mitchell would say, we've got to have that conversation. And we all get to weigh in. We're missing one of our colleagues today, so the next meeting will be important in that we
Okay.
all can settle this. So if you just make sure you keep up with our tabs, I think
Yes.
that's important for me. I may support, the magistrate and the solicitor, but somebody else may weigh in on somebody else and stuff. And so you got to aggregate, how this works.
Yes.
Aggregate, whatever you get that collective 3,
We got
that
that.
officially goes in.
Okay.
And there may be some things that we think about between now and when it's time, because the citizens still have time. I agree with Ms. Bechtel. Like, look, yeah, you're right. Yeah, 18 hours. That's what I'm trying to get staff's attention. Don't do that. Don't sleight of hand us and the citizens. You're making us look bad. That's important, right? Because we've always had a very conscious, open, when it comes to the money. No, show them. Director Hallman went 14 straight years. A GGFOA for publication of our annual budget process. Excellent. We were very proud of outstanding for transparency, for accuracy. That's one of those holy grail things. Don't leave that alone now. Don't play with that. Don't play with that. So, anyway, I just wanted to drive home the point, Madam Chair, and making sure that we all know we got time to weigh in. It's not over yet. But for the most part, 99% is done. We just got to work through that last penny. I yield the floor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Rosalind, before you sit down, I just wanted to clarify one more thing for Ms. Batchel, and then we'll move on board. Regarding our commissioners' salary, she mentioned why did they increase. It was budget neutral. Can you let her know we just trimmed a little bit from the actual main account that everybody utilized, and just made sure that each commissioner had a separate account. So it's still budget neutral. Nothing changed. There's no extra money being thrown in their budget. It's money that was conglomerated, if you could explain it to her.
If you look at the Board of Commissioners' total budget, you'll see that it has decreased.
Yes.
Because some of the funding, as Commissioner Robinson mentioned they had only their aides in their budget, but all their other supplies or travel came out of the Board of Commissioners. So what he's proposing is that create a budget for each,
Right.
which it should be budget neutral because the money is in the Board of Commissioners. So we started moving some, and I think on his tab, he's asking for additional amount for each. And if the board agrees, then, you know, their budget will increase, the district's commissioners' budgets will increase. But we moved what we could, like their salary. So the increase could be, you know, due to salary and also health insurance increase. But it's nothing, it was nothing new, you know, nothing over last year's.
Right.
But if you look at Board of Commissioners, you'll see Board of Commissioners decrease and the districts increased.
Correct. So that is, I hope that helps, Ms. Batchel. So, okay, Vice Chairman. you have-
Yeah, it's important. No, Board of Commissioners ain't got a salary increase. Let's be clear. Don't even try it. No, we ain't sliding, sleight of hand and doing some accounting and giving it, no. That stuff will get you put in jail. No, that's not what we did. Right? We get to what, the $500 when we go through certification, we maybe get another, what is it, Lisa, when we get to certain 5 years, we may get a little something, of $1,500, that's it. These 13 years I've been in office, that's all I've gotten, it's what it was. The expense account, the only thing that changed, we're allowed by law, statutory, keep it moving. But please don't get, because y'all were using those words very slightly, like, well, the board, no, we didn't get an increase in salary. It's fixed. The only way that's gonna be done is what? Up there, up at the top. General Assembly, unless we're gonna pass them, and I don't see that happening today. But that's not our intent. So I wanna be careful with that when y'all talk about the Board of Commissioners. No, we have not given ourselves a salary increase. The budget is the budget. So we got more things that we're doing, great. That increase, not our salary. Be careful with that language. For our staff, yes. They get a plate like everybody else does. But let's be careful about the Board of Commissioners that people won't take away. They want to hear what they want to hear. I had to defend that moment, Madam Chair. I yield. Thank you. I just had to
Okay.
protect her.
All right, well, I hope that helps, Ms. Batchel, and then we're going to move on and appreciate you, Rosalind. Just wanted to say that the move that you see made regarding the salaries, not even salaries, because it's operating expenses for the Board of Commissioners, that is just a move from one account to another, and you'll see where it says the actual budget, Board of Commissioners, actual budget really shrunk. It moved down. So it is no longer 900,000, it's 500,000. So all that money was just dispersed between the district commissioners. So thank you so much, and I'll have a personal conversation with you offline, Ms. Batchel. I appreciate you being here and your engagement. All right, Board of Commissioners, with that being said, we have had our first public hearing. We're going to move on to our next item, so thank you. Our next item on the agenda, Board of Commissioners, is business items. We have tab number 6, which is approval to allocate budgeted and unused salary funds for incentive hazard pay for all juvenile court employees in the amount of $5,000 for each employee, total gross amount of $35,000. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to untable this item?
So move.
Do we have a second? A second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion to untable when our
Yes,
call.
Madam Chair, before you. Yes. Based on yesterday's meeting, did our incoming county attorney, Mr. Coleman, have a chance to talk to our juvenile judge? Did they have the conversation? Are we clear? Or do we, I just want to know, if you haven't had the conversation and y'all not ready, y'all know where I'm going to go after that. I just need to.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chair, I did have the opportunity yesterday to talk to Judge Harrison,
Okay.
and we would like to have the matter remain tabled
Okay.
until next meeting, because we intend to meet and discuss some of our issues before that time period, and get back to the board with some recommendations jointly.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we will definitely leave it table, so I'll just make a motion to leave it table, Board of Commissioners.
So if you just unrescind,
Madam Chair, since I made the motion, I'd like to ask the council something.
Okay, to rescind your motion, okay?
What is to discuss? This is, they've got the money in their budget, and it's been done in other offices, so I'm just asking.
So there are some issues with respect to the use of, or the use money to pay additional compensation for services that have already been rendered.
There's been a precedence already set in the tax commissioner's office.
And I understand, ma'am, I'm not aware of that, I don't know about that, but I know that the language is very, very clear in the Constitution about that, if it's for services previously rendered. So what she and I, it's very, very clear, it's under the gratuities clause, and I'm happy to find it and read it for you, but it says very, very clear you cannot do it. And so I'm not sure, there may have been some basis on the precedent, it may have been, structured differently. And that's what she and I will be discussing over the next couple of weeks, because that's currently structured.
Okay, and I'd like to talk to you about what has been done in the past since you're new.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify that I believe a precedence has already been set.
Understood,
I don't know
ma'am.
whether it was legal. If it's not legal, it should apply across the board to everybody.
I'm happy to discuss it with you, but based on just the language that I saw in the Constitution and with the discussion around this, we thought it was better to, and she saw it, I shared the language with her, and we agreed that it'd be better for us to talk about how to properly go forward with this.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess I rescind my
Your motion,
motion.
okay?
You gotta rescind your second.
And I say I rescind my second, okay? So,
Madam Chair?
Thank you.
I'm happy to talk.
Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the
I can
floor.
explain.
Yeah, and again, this is an important topic that we have to have this conversation.
I heard that.
I think,
don't know about that.
when it comes to the law, guys, when it comes to the law, I think there's a distinguishing difference between a constitutional officer that has way more power and authority than perhaps an appointed official. And we can't be convened by thinking just because, like, okay, but they're not the same. So I ask, when y'all go offline, y'all make sure y'all clarify the difference. Doesn't matter. The probate judge, the tax commissioner, the
Superior.
Madam over, Superior Court Clerk, right? We got certain roles, the DA.
The sheriff.
They have certain authority beyond just everybody else, because they're constitutional, which is different than statutory. Now, when we're talking about the juvenile, right now, I get where she's a judge, yeah, but she's appointed, not to, it's not a disparaging, it's like they're not the same. You can't walk in that authority, so I appreciate why you do need newness here to sort of make sure to, like, okay, the law is the law. Now, the past is the past. Now, we'll go back and look at that, but those are two distinguishing difference. And that's the whole point why we're sitting here, like, okay, like, let's just get it right. But nobody's entitled unless the law allows it. Right? So it's those type of moments where was the protection? So I'm looking forward to our council to protect the board, protect the broader, make sure we don't step out there on stuff that we don't need to do. And so some of this is like, well, y'all take this offline. We're trying to avoid things that, like, again, other people are watching us. Right, so keep it honest, keep it real. So I just wanted to bring that up. So this is one of those, it has nothing to do with a vote of confidence or support for that. It's just, are we allowed to? And then make sure that we're clear, and if there's a path forward, as I always say, sounds good. But if there's not, we can't do it that way, maybe it's another way. And I yield, Madam Chair, thank you.
Madam
you so
Chair,
much.
may I respond?
Commissioner
And-
Guider, you
And I'll
have the
keep
floor.
it, I'll keep it short.
Okay.
This Board of Commissioners is charged with setting the budget. And when we give any elected official a contingency fund to do with whatever they want to do, and they use that for bonuses, then it falls back on us. So we don't have to give them monies that they can't justify. So we need to look at our role in the whole thing too, because if we're allowing them to do something illegal, then it's our fault. So I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Okay, with that, the item it remains tabled. We're going to move
Madam
on
Chair.
to.
Madam Chair. Yeah.
Commissioner Mitchell.
I just want to give our legal, Kenneth, can you add to this topic, please? before I make my comment?
Glad to. First of all, what Mr. Coleman said is correct. We've been engaged in discussions both with him and the juvenile court judge, and I think it's very, very important because we use the word precedent around here, sometimes erroneously, and that is there is no legal precedent for the legal department blessing any payment in the past during our tenure or currently during this transition for payments made to people that came through our department. Having said that, constitutional officers have on occasion probably taken action that wasn't blessed by us, and we found out about it after the fact. That doesn't create a precedent going forward. There's also a little bit of confusion about hazard pay, bonus pay, incentive pay, partly driven during the COVID era because some of the federal funds that have flown down to states and local governments has specifically allowed payments to sort of be applied in a retroactive calendar type application. And I can tell you, because I've had a lot of conversations with ACCG lawyers and lawyers around the state, that everybody has taken that federal money that has gotten it and is of the same opinion, despite the gratuity clause, which applies to anything not exempted by federal law. The COVID emergency funding probably exempts state law when it deals with gratuities. So, and hazard pay is not a gratuity, by the way. I don't want to imply that, but what we're walking around a little bit is the issue. It's a very, very narrow issue, and when people are sitting on the sidelines, they see something happen, they think, well, why can't I do it? All this has been explained to Judge Harrison. She wants to work within the law. She's a judge, and she's agreed to this tabling until it can get worked out with Mr. Coleman. But I can tell you that's where we are.
Thank you, Ken. All right, and I'll yield at this point, but Madam Chair, I think if I'm correcting what we're trying to do here, are we trying to untable then retable it, or just table it out the tabling? I think we got to do the reverse. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it should be probably untabled and
Right.
retabled to the
Right.
next meeting, Madam
So that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So your motion before was to untable, and you got a motion on the second should continue, and then retable it if that's the plan. But if there's something different that's about to happen, then you might want to make that correction, and I yield.
Okay, thank you. I believe we rescinded it, but that may
Yeah.
not be good enough.
You did rescind it, so you're back. That's what I was.
Okay. You said table it again? Okay. Okay. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to table tab number 6, approval to allocate budgeted and unused salary funds for incentive?
Madam Chair, I think what we're saying.
I think
We
we
need
have
to
to
untable
untable,
it.
then
Untable, okay.
make
And
a
then
motion
come back
to
to
table
retable.
We had a
again.
motion and a second to untable already on the floor. We have a motion.
But you rescinded that, though.
Okay, I'll do it again.
Okay, there you
Board of
go.
Commissioners, do we have approval to allocate budget and unused salary funds, to untable the approval to allocate budgeted and unused salary funds for incentive hazard pay for all juvenile court employees in the amount of $5,000, total gross amount of $35,000. Do we have a motion to untable?
I make a motion to untable item number 6, the allocation for the juvenile court, and to retable till the next meeting, which is December the 17th, I think. 14th,
Okay,
okay?
do we have a second? Okay, second. We have a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second. When I call your district, please respond accordingly. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 4 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to table the item. Thank you, retable. All right, Board of Commissioners, we're going to move on. Thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. We're going to move on to tab number 7, approval of a new county public safety compensation policy. This item has been tabled. Do we have a motion to untable this item? It was tabled on 11/17/21.
So moved.
Do we
So
have-
moved.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. When I call you district, please respond accordingly. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Chairman, yes. We have a 5-4 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to untable this item. Okay, here we are again, Board of Commissioners. We have approval of a new county policy, safety compensation policy. Is there any discussion? Vice Chairman, certainly this is one of the legislation that you are sponsoring, so you can certainly bring it forward with discussion. Please.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one, we'll keep it simple. This is something that was part of the overall Legislative Reform Act of 2021 that was proposed, that the board has at least gone to, 3 or 4 readings of this policy. Is Director Miller, I need her help.
Yes, okay. Rosalind Miller, thank you.
Come on down.
Okay.
And can you
So-
just help speak to this, just frame it? I'll take it from there, please.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes. As you recall, this policy is to, what was on the table were some options, and this is to provide public safety with increase. And public safety is defined the sheriff's office, coroner, E911, fire and EMS, animal control, and code enforcement. The 3 options was, one, for a 20% increase to the departments that I mentioned, that the total cost is $8.6 million. A 15% increase, the cost is $6.4 million, or a 10% increase, the cost was $4.3 million. The funding source was identified as to increase the millage rate to fund it. As you know that the millage rate, 1 mil is $5.1 million. So the 20% is at $8.6 million. So you would need about a 1.6 mil to cover that. The 15% is 6.4 million, so that's over the 5.1 million, so you would need 1.2 mil to cover it. And 10% is at 4.3 million, and you would need a millage of 0.84 mil to cover the increase of 10% to public safety.
All right. So this, again, I bring this up because obviously we already got in the budget process. This was the predecessor to the, or sort of the catalyst for the whole conversation of taking care of public safety workers. Right? We went through this exercise of ensuring that the public, as well as our peers and everybody, understood what it would cost to fulfill the number one thing in our strategic plan. How much is it going to cost? If public safety is number one, we got their shiny objects, that's a SPLOST next year, we make sure they get the cars, we already took care of their building, okay, we got that. This is about taking care of the actual people, the actual humans, our human capital. And so this was early, we've been talking about this for 2-3 years, but okay, this is the year in which, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the hazard, like how are we gonna really take care of them now that we're in a healthier place? As opposed to using this money that's now healthy and letting staff put a bunch of shiny objects in there. Let's dedicate this recurring expense to take care of these guys that are the number one priority. So we forced the conversation amongst ourselves, that guys, let's quit talking about it and do something about it. You have room, you have capacity. So we showed the math over 10 years to show what it would take to actually do this. And this proposal was really about pledging an additional mill on top of, almost like what, no, not almost, exactly like defense at Congress. They're going through the process right now. They got a budget they got to extend through the end of the year, and they got the defense package. Defense is independent of their $1 trillion budget. It's totally separate. national security. Totally different budget process, off the top, it is what it is. So my point, if y'all really believe in what you say you are, which, hey, I'm in, this is what the cost is. Let's take care of frontline, public safety off the top. Dedicated funding, but we do fire and EMS like that right now. So I'm talking about a dedicated district, how do you fund that? So that was that whole point, but again, through the conservative modeling that we have and our whole budget that we hopefully will adopt in 2 weeks, you've got room just organically. That was the whole point. What, as Madam Guy said, well, we got about 6, 7, like, no, you're committing to public safety. You can't have it both ways. If you're gonna take care of it, then that means that $6 million is about to be obligated to those people. Pay attention. Pay attention. Right? We can pretend like we don't see that, like, no, that's where that's about to go. And if you don't have the discipline, you will face what she just said, a mill on top of an increase. This is not an okie doke. This is like, act like y'all know what y'all looking at. This is gonna cost, but the public said that this, we need y'all to do this, figure it out, do the math, show us, educate where we're going. This hearing is for that, guys. We've been having this conversation. Are y'all paying attention? We can go full throttle, take a full meal, take care of them forever, or we can do it organically through what we got to work with. It's about education. It's not politics, because I'm number one, pay them. Take care of them. Now, you got my vote. I'm solid. I don't budge. I don't debate with myself. I'm not, no, District 2 all in. But you got to get to 3. But we're already in play. It's already been, the ARP money is already in play. So we're at least obligated on the 10 and 5, and then 5 for everybody else for 2 years. So now it's got to catch up. But you got room. You got time. So this policy was one of those more of a, okay, guys, this year would obligate us to now extend 10% all the way out. So I'm clarifying, Madam Chair, for the conversation, like, I don't know about that. You already got it in play. Unless y'all really want to go ahead and make it dedicated, I think this is a conversation that we really would have to pass, that we would need a full board of commissioners to do this. I don't think we should do it with just the 4 because it's going to require, oh no, y'all got to be all in on this one. Put your vote, where the citizens have voiced their concerns. We adopted a strategic plan that says that public safety is number 1. There's no doubt about it. We're committed to make sure. Madam Chair has always tried to do what she could regarding cars stuff. We made sure to get their tasers, no problem. All the other guys that are part of fire, EMS, okay, we got y'all shiny objects on the pass blocks. Got to take care of sheriff on this one. All right, we got it. The coroner, everybody else, animal control, we get it, we got you guys. Those are much smaller, but they're still part of all of that. Code enforcement, we got you guys. E911, EMA, all, got you. But this was, we were serious. When I proposed this legislation, it was like, okay, I've been listening to y'all. Let me put something on the table. This thing had teeth. But I want to make sure you know what you're looking at. It was pledging a meal totally to public safety, to ensure that y'all they were taken care of off the top. Then we deal with the budget. But in essence, we can deal with this increase the way they've structured it over time. You already got a 2-year buy from the feds. Thank you, Congress. Appreciate it. But this is what this is about. All right, so now we're here. So, Madam Chair, I just want to yield because, again, this is that time. Either we will vote on this or we will table it to another time. But this is, know what we're talking about this. This right here was on top of an additional mill, which would require you, if we hadn't done what we just did, to pledge, to increase the millage rate next August by a whole mill to cover this. If y'all serious, public, y'all okay with that? That was what this is all about. Are y'all serious? Y'all really want them? We'll take care of them like defense. They're done. Know the cost. This ain't to box any of my peers. It ain't to push you in the corner. Do you know what you're doing? No, I'm telling you up front. Do you know what you're looking at? So anyway, Madam Chair, I yield and let your guys weigh in, and I'm open any way we're gonna go. I'm always about the three.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yes,
Commissioner
ma'am.
Mitchell? Okay, Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Everybody wants to pay public safety. However, I don't think we should obligate, excuse me, subsequent boards to a meal. There is a way of doing it. We're going to have excess funds, I guarantee you. Set up an account that applies to this. Pledge $1 million into the fund every year or something like that, but this is not the right way to do it. This should be a budgeted item. And I'm not sure whether you're talking about the $16.50 minimum. That's not part of this? This is just on the one meal? I just do not think this is the proper way of doing it. We're going to have some funds left, and we tend to spend all the money. We should make this our priority. Set up a fund that we build on every year so that we can allow some funds to be raised to give them the raises. But for the next 2 years, we've got it covered by the ARPA funds. So we've got 2 years to work on that. We're going to have some excess funds, a lot of money left, and I do not want to put this on the taxpayers. They're already hurting from the 27% tax increase. And I do not know if it's even legal that we can obligate subsequent boards of commissioners to a meal. So with that, I'm not ready to vote on this. I would like for the commissioner from the 3rd District to be here, and when we vote on it. So with that, I yield back.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Guider. You can.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
Commissioner Mitchell wanted to speak, okay.
No, I'll yield. Go ahead. I mean, it's going to be two.
I'll yield to facilitate, I was just facilitating the conversation.
Go ahead.
You want to handle it, Madam Chair? Go ahead.
Commissioner Mitchell, you have the floor.
Oh, okay, so I'll be quick. I agree with the commissioner in the 4th District that we need to make sure that all of us are accounted for and be at the table and assure we decide on what this may or may not be. I'd like to also add, I think we're missing, if I'm not mistaken, the code enforcement that's being stated, but I'm reading again and I'm short by not seeing code enforcement as one of those legal entities, meaning the sheriff, fire, EMS, E911, animal control, and coroner. But I think we're missing code enforcement, and I could be incorrect, but I think the statement has always been made that they were part of this whole process. Am I correct in my thoughts, or is that a typo on me? So, Lisa, am I incorrect in that statement, or? Oh, no. Oh, you didn't write, okay, all right. So if, definitely we add that part. But I think we should definitely, I think we're covered for the next 2 years. I think it's a great idea to make the possible excess that we're potentially anticipating be a part of that whole process of setting aside or building toward and understanding when we get to that point, we'll be ready to do this. But I think it should be made either for a vote. If we're going to cast a vote, I think I would love for the District 3 Commissioner to be a part of this whole process. So I would say we table this to some date in the future, at a future meeting, and make that correction of adding code enforcement, and then move forward as to whether or not we're going to move in this direction by adding a meal, or we're going to creatively do something a little different in financially stabilizing these 4 or 5 entities. And I'll yield at that point.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, duly noted, and Commissioner Mitchell, code enforcement was supposed to be in there. I've never not stated that or did not advocate that, so it should be in there, but we'll clean that up. And duly noted, we'll wait till the next meeting, but I'll support, tabling it till we have a full house. But again, there's no right or wrong or approach. It's just, did you ever count the cost? I tire sometimes of just narratives without facts. They're great stories, great political rhetoric. Do the math. So now we can have an educated conversation, right? And again, I recognize that at any time, any future board can repeal anything they want to. They can sit there and say, I want to do this. They can vote something down. Right? So while we're committing, in essence, it's not like a note, in essence. In essence, they can stop it. But we can't do that. The pandemic hit again. We got to cut. Like, no, we can't give raises like we intended to. All we're doing is budgeting. We're appropriating funds, but if something comes along and happens along life, so it's when we're acknowledging that we're setting this aside. But look, you got 3 elections up next year. I mean, hopefully everybody returns, but you could have a whole shift. Please, we're not amateur about how this could happen and what could happen. Let's just be honest. So the question really comes down to, let's make sure that we're looking at the numbers right. The whole point was to push the conversation to show that we were mature enough to even look at the numbers and how committed were we were not. So maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle. But I agree, you need to set aside that bucket. So Rosalind, let's take notes of what the comments were said. Just like with the capital transportation fund, let's have a public safety fund to go along like our fire EMS fund. It's just market. And we've got a couple of weeks to sort of talk about how we could actually structure that. So let's entertain that. So when we come back, we can look at this. You've already done the heavy lifting for us regarding the 10-year look. You did an excellent job. They can't run from the numbers. They know the commitment. And we've had some good conversations. But can you work on that for us? I'll work with you offline. Madam Chair, I think this is sufficient, and I'm ready to move the table if you so choose. I yield.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chairman. Certainly,
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Guider.
I think that when the word public safety, when those words are thrown out there, people generally refer to the police or the sheriff's office and fire and EMS. I do not understand why we're including all these other departments that's under us. And I would like to see the figures with just the fire department and the sheriff's office. What the 10%, the 20% would be. And do we put a halt or a date out there as to when this goes away? Is this forever and ever and ever? They get 10% every year? So we need a date that this drops off too. But if, Rosalind, if you would include just the sheriff's office and the fire, because these other offices, they're not on the front line, so to speak, putting their lives in danger. There's a difference to me. So.
Do 10 and 20.
Pardon?
10% and then 20%.
Yes.
Okay.
Please, thank you. And I yield back, Madam.
All right, thank you. Okay, Vice Chairman.
Yes, as the sponsor of this legislation, Rosalind, what's on the table stays on the table. However, you will work with Madam Guider to get her the intelligence that she needs. The proposed legislation that we read included those, and where the source came from is called our CAFR, our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And that is how they structure the public safety component. Those entities primarily are in there. Go take a look at it. So it had more to do with that. Now, again, there's different views on how people see the world. I'm very careful not to let someone else dictate how I see and what that means. Depends on what tribe you out of, what nation, how you see the world. I want to be real careful to say we all can coexist in how we approach this. And so I want to acknowledge that what's on the table is what's been read into record, what we're working from, and if there's some additions to take out, we'll go through the same process we've gone through before. In fact, if there's a consideration, a motion can be made at our next meeting when we've got a full house. And if there's a desire to take out and reduce it, if there's 3 votes, it will, and if it's not, it's not. All right, so we're getting to a point of real action, but I want to make sure that the board as well as staff understands what we're trying to get to. All right, so make sure you work directly. You know you got to listen to the commissioner now. That vote matters, right? So make sure she gets the intelligence, that she's acknowledged, that she wants this on the record. So Madam Clerk, make sure we capture Madam Guider's point of that she wants an amendment considered to this that would only include 3 or 4, in her perspective, parts of public safety. Let's acknowledge each other, but let's understand how the process will work and what is the proper way to do legislation. All right, Madam Chair, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Mitchell, did you want to add something? before-
I did. I was going to add some color, but I think it's all said and done.
It's done. Okay.
Right. But I will just add, just make sure that one correction, that the code enforcement is added. And I would like to make a motion that we table this item to a future date. Lisa, what's that next meeting? December 14th. With this item will come before us. So I would like to put it back on the table for that particular date stated by Ms. Watson. That's my motion.
Okay.
I
and-
second.
Okay, second. Okay. Board of Commissioners, any discussion? We have a motion on the table and a second. When I call your district, please respond accordingly. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 4.
Yes.
Chairman, yes, we have a 4 unanimous vote to allow this item to remain tabled. I didn't get a chance to interject what I wanted to say. Certainly, I'm going to tip in and just say a few things. Promise the citizens that we would continue to double down on expenses. In 2020, we did so by reducing our budget by $11 million, and that was quite pleasing. And then, of course, the furloughs were not fun, but it was 1 week, and of course, we had an extra week that we paid our employees, so it really kind of washed itself out. And then the property owners and taxpayers, of course, jumped in and helped as well. So I'm looking at that 1 meal per year is a little heavy, because I promised the citizens, just me personally, that certainly I will not be in their faces anymore about asking about anything, because we have a pandemic before us, and everybody is doing all they can to survive. And my take on this is our fiscal reform policy it's going to give us it will organically give us the money that we need to fund the increases for our public safety officials going forward because of the discipline of this board. So that's just my personal take on it, and I'm just one vote, but I just want to make sure that the citizens of Douglas County hear me loud and clear. I appreciate you giving us some room in 2020, because this pandemic came unexpectedly here in Douglas County and across this nation. So I'm hoping everybody at home is doing well. And again, I want us to keep thriving. And when I say that, I want the citizens to keep thriving, because they are the reason why this board and all of us are here. So I'm going to move on to the next item, tab number 9. We have tab number 8, submittal of applicant names, Deborah Johnson Blake and Kevin Evans, to the Hospital Authority Board for appointment. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. You want it manually?
No, it
No.
hadn't come up yet.
Okay, thank you. You can. We have a 4 unanimous vote, and the motion carries, Board. So we're going to move on to tab number 9, reappointment of Mr. Paul Davis to the Board of Assessors effective December 7, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. We have a 4 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. Board, we're going to move on to tab number 10, reappointment of Tracy Ruckert, Joe Phillips, Suzanne Hudson, and Catherine Wynn to the Tourism and History Board effective January 1st, 2022. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Okay. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board? Please prepare to cast your votes if there's no discussion. Okay, we have a 4 unanimous vote, and the motion carries. Board of Commissioners, that leads us into our consent agenda. All items are subject to final legal review. Tab number 11 is authorization to accept a Leo grant from the CJG in the amount of $25,807 for the state court DUI drug court program, amend the budget and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 12 is authorization to apply for the fiscal year 2022 law enforcement training program and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 13 is approval of the MOU with Ascension Counseling and Mental Health LLC for services to the State Court of DUI Drug Court Treatment Program and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 14, authorization for the chairman to execute a car allowance agreement for Dia Warren in the district attorney's office with no budget impact, as this is just a name change to an existing car allowance agreement. Tab number 15, authorization to acquire Matterhorn software service Icon on online dispute resolution ODR agreement and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 16, approval of lease agreement for storage space needed for the Board of Elections in the amount of $8,800 to be funded through grants for the first year and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 17, acceptance of funds from the City of Douglasville and City of Douglasville and City of Villa Rica in the total amount of $57,784 for conducting November 2nd, 2021 municipal election and to amend those funds in the current year's budget. Tab number 18, approval of a resolution of support of the county's application for federal funding for transportation projects in connection with the Atlanta Regional Commission's FY 2022 call for projects committing to a required 20% local match, which is $4,296,101, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 19, approval of the FY 2022 LMEG SPLOST road resurfacing list for submittal to GDOT in connection with the county's application for FY 2022 LMEG funding and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Tab number 20, authorization for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to renew a 5-year agreement with Axon Enterprises for tasers in the amount of $36,400 for the first-year license and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Tab number 21, authorization to amend Fund 540, Solid Waste Disposal 2021 budget in the amount of $220,000. And then tab number 22 is authorization to utilize 75 previously purchased incentive cards for a vaccination drive sponsored by Commissioner Mitchell to be held on December 11, 2021. Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, Board, on any items before we move forward? We have a motion and a second. Please prepare to cast your votes. Lisa? Lisa?
Yes, ma'am, I guess it's not showing on the screen. Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, we have a full unanimous vote to approve the consent agenda, and the motion carries. Thank you so much, Board of Commissioners. Board of Commissioners, do you have any announcements that you would like to bring forth before we bring up our Communications Director, Rick Martin, Vice Chairman Robinson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. Tomorrow, which I believe is December 1st, 2021, at 7 p.m., I'm having my annual State of the District. This time last year, you guys chose to send me back into office for what I call that last dance, that fourth term, and I need to give an account for what has happened in the past year. So we're going to be talking about things that has been accomplished in District 2, some of the challenges, some of the tough decisions. This is one of those, as my bishop would say, you don't want to miss this. This is going to be a good one, and it'll be exactly an hour. It won't be no props, ain't no guests. It's just me and my team, and we're just going to get in there, and we're going to share some things with you, talk about the past, the present, and where we're going as a district. So I look forward to it. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, is going to be cast live online. I guess it's going to be from the county's external affairs. We'll be beaming this. So I will be, is it called in studio, Henry, or some kind of way? I'll be in-house. I won't be remote, but nonetheless, it's all going to be online, and so that's the key part. It's all going to be online. 7 p.m. tomorrow, look out for it. Just come to What's Happening or External Affairs. You'll see the sharing of the video. We're going to go live. There will be some questions for you to do, whatever the chat box, whatever you guys do, and we'll take it from there. But I look forward to you guys coming out and being engaged with me because, again, this is going to be a good one. Madam Chair, I yield the floor. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Any other?
Yes,
Commissioner Mitchell?
just a couple, and I know Program Director Rick Martin will probably mention this again, though, but I've got my coffee and conversation coming up Saturday, December 4th, from 10 until 12 noon at the Lithia Springs Senior Citizen Center, 7301 Groovers Lake Road in Lithia Springs. So I'd like for you to come on by, join us. Remember, I provide the coffee, you provide the conversation, and there's a lot of discussions about this budget, about kind of where we are and what's the future direction on several policies and all the great things that are happening right here in Douglas County. So I invite you to join me, come out, the coffee and conversation. That'll be Saturday, December 4th from 10 until 12 noon at the new Lithia Springs Senior Citizen Center. Also, spend this Christmas and, all the holiday season and festivities are coming up and you want to spend some time with your family and friends, and I'll be doing this, Get Out and Get Vaccinated. And that'll take place on Saturday, December 11th from 10 until 12 noon at Willie A. Watkins Funeral Home, 8312 Dallas Highway in Douglasville. So come by, and I would also like to thank the Sheriff Pounds and myself have teamed up to provide this incentive for those of you who would like to come out and get vaccinated. And we're going to be giving out gift cards of $100 after you take the shot and do the right thing. And you'll get a gift card, compliments of this Board of Commissioners and Sheriff Pounds and all of us. So again, that will be Saturday, December 11th from 10 until 12 noon at Willie A. Watkins Funeral Home, 8312 Dallas Highway in Douglasville. So come join us, and we can kind of get vaccinated and get the numbers up. I think Madam Chair stated that she's going to kind of give us an update at our next meeting when it comes to kind of where we are and how we're doing here in Douglasville and Douglas County. Thank you again, and I'll yield the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. The floor has been yielded to you. Madam Guider, do you have anything you would like to share?
Ephesus Baptist Church will be having their pantry tomorrow at 4, their drive-through pantry. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Guider. Director Rick Martin, can you come up and fulfill the rest of the announcements, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely, Mr. Vice Chair Robinson. In continuation of announcements, Douglas County kicks off the holiday season with a tree lighting ceremony. The residents of Douglas County and all are invited to observe the event with their families and enjoy taking pictures in front of the 32-foot decorated tree in front of the courthouse with hundreds of lights and ornaments. The tree lighting ceremony will take place on the steps of the county courthouse at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 2nd. That's Thursday, December 2nd at 6:30 p.m. Also, we'll be featuring the Alexander Mastery Choir from Alexander High School. We'll be singing carols as well. The Douglas County Youth Commission, in partnership with Connect Douglas, is collecting canned goods, toys, toiletries, and gently used or new coats, gloves, and socks through December 15th. Donations can be dropped off at the Douglas County Courthouse and the Connect Douglas Multimodal Transportation Center. For more information, the public's invited to contact Tabria Cobb at tabriacobb@co.douglas.ga.us. Free COVID-19 testing is being offered at Deer Lick Park Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, you can call DouglasvilleCovid.com. And for COVID-19 information, you can call the COVID-19 call center at 1-833-974-3366. Again, just to remind everyone, Saturday, December 4th, Coffee and Conversations, as Commissioner Mitchell just mentioned, that's 10 a.m. to 12 noon at the Lithia Springs Senior Center. And Commissioner Mitchell is also hosting a vaccination event, an incentive event on Saturday, December 11th, 2021, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. And that's at 8312 Dallas Highway in Douglasville. Gift cards are $100 until supplies last. I yield back the floor to you, Madam Chair. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you so much, Director Martin, providing just a litany of events that are going on through the community. Certainly excited about the Christmas tree lighting event on Thursday, and commend Commissioner Mitchell to continue pushing the vaccinations, because we do have a new strain that has come about recently. It was identified, the strain is identified in Africa, and we have an idea that it may, based on some of the scientific studies and data that's been released, that we may see the virus migrate to the United States, and Douglas County, of course, will not be exempt. The new virus, if someone could just help me with the new name. You know the new name, Vice Chair? It's something. Omicron. Is that it? Omicron. So we need to be prepared for Omicron, and certainly continue to double down on our mask and washing our hands every day or repeatedly throughout the day, and also watching our social distancing and making sure that we take advantage of the booster shot that's out there, and also our citizens who have not received the vaccine, if you consider the vaccine, certainly it's up to your discretion, but certainly it is a health move. And again, we did not anticipate this virus lasting this long. It's going into year 2, and hopefully there will be some end in sight. But Board of Commissioners, thank you so much. And citizens, if I just ask you to this virus is real, and to continue to monitor yourself and your health and your families. Board of Commissioners, we will reconvene this evening at 6 p.m. So if there's nothing else to come before this body, this meeting is in recess until 6 p.m. So I'll see you at 6 p.m. Thank you. Virtually. We'll have a virtual Board of Commissioners and Planning and Zoning meeting at 6 p.m. Thank you. It's virtual. Thank you.